Welcome back to the Conversation Pit. Our special guest today is Sabrina Linder, an author and life coach who has truly experienced a cultural rich life, from living in Kenya to Germany. Today, she operates a life coaching business that is focused on inspiring and energizing people to live the life they truly dream of. Her upcoming novel, An Ordinary Odyssey, tells her story further. You can check out more information in the description. Now, here's Sabrina Linder.
I want you to talk about a little bit how you got into the field of writing, the field of just sort of being a creative intellect
hmm
coming from your parents and international backgrounds in various countries. Um, Tell us more about a summary of how you went from point A in the beginning of your life and how that transitioned to point B where you are right now.
Mm. Um, so I think it is really my parents' background that shaped sort of my interest for the world in general and the interest for different cultures, different languages, and also understanding, okay, why do some people make it such a big deal that people look differently, that they speak differently, that they have different beliefs, and others somehow don't? So from a very early age, because I grew up in some communes where political topics were always discussed, there was a lot of talk about climate change, a lot of talk about how can we make the world a better place by taking responsibility as people. So I had those values from being a child, and I always had the drive to explore the world and go out there. So when I finished high school in Germany, I started studying political science because I was like, yay, I'll be, a politician and really change the system. And then during my first semester at university, I was like, oh my God, I can't deal with this. I cannot. I was absolutely unhappy there. And I felt everything was just theory and not linked to reality that people were actually living. It was just talk, 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 but not really action for me. So I told my family I want to drop out and just go out into the world. And I always had an interest for sub-Saharan Africa. For some reason, I can't explain why. So I ended up going there, and I studied at University of Nairobi, and I lived there for 15 years, and it shaped a lot of how I see the world. Nairobi is a super international place, very chaotic, very colorful, very crazy, but also very beautiful and very amazing in terms of what kind of people you can meet. So I think there was a reason for why I had to end up there, so that I can learn so much about different cultures, so much about the human mindset, and about how everything is relative in terms of our values and how we view the world in general. So that's sort of a bit of the background story of how I ended up from point A to point B.
Sabrina, I wanted to say something
Yes.
that is so tenacious and confident and independent of you to be in university in the political science field and to say, I don't want to do this, and you dropped out.
Yes.
That's a lot of confidence to drop out of university.
It was scary at the
Please,
time.
so uh, tell us more about your how'd you made that decision? How long did it take you to make that decision? When did it go from, okay, this is a scary decision to, all right, I'm going to do it?
Mm.
And then number two, tell us more about your classmates and what they were thinking at the same time and whether you talk about your unique perspective of halting school.
hmm So, I mean, a semester is like several months, right? So I think it took me maybe 3 months. Now it's been a few years, but I would say 3 months or so to really get to a point where I can't take this anymore. And to be honest, I knew after just a week that it wasn't the right thing. I just, I'm someone who has a very strong sense of, okay, I'm comfortable here or I'm not. And I try to follow that because that's how I was brought up. So I walked into that place and I felt like I'm just not connected here. I feel everyone's walking around busily, not looking at each other, not trying to support and uplift each other. It was very anonymous. And I felt I had to sort of fight to make a connection. And I didn't like that at all. I felt that's a sign that it's just not my place. I connected with a few classmates and they were all very sweet, but I didn't feel that, I don't know whether you know when you click with someone from the beginning and it's just like, okay, you're hitting it off and it's great.
So, like those classmates, what were some common grounds for bonding? What did you guys like share together?
I think a critical view of the world, like in the sense that, okay, we are human beings, we want to take responsibility for change.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all the people I connected with were sort of very actively involved in wanting to make a change and a difference in the world. Whereas many of the
Mm-hmm.
others, and I don't want to sound judgmental, but I didn't get that vibe from my other classmates. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what I was missing. And a lot of, if I know this theory about politics, then I have understood the world. So I felt there was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of judgment and a lot of, we in Europe have figured it out. And again, I don't want to be judgmental because that time I was a teenager, a young adult,
Mm-hmm.
probably I also had stronger views and less tolerant views than I have now.
Right.
I met my classmates in Kenya, and one of my classmates there, we instantly clicked, and she's still my best friend today. So that was,
Mm-hmm.
you can see the difference. I immediately felt, okay, apart from the topic, which is gender and development that I studied in Kenya, a very different,
Mm-hmm.
it has politics as well, but it has a different perspective to
Mm-hmm.
politics.
Mm-hmm.
So there, I instantly found a very strong connection with someone that has lasted all these years up to today. So I believe that those are signs of, okay, you are in the right place here.
Mm-hmm.
So in the book, you said Aquila, she had a vivid imagination when driving past the Cherokee Reserve, and she was in her mind really thinking about the watershed, the blood, and the
Mm.
fighting. And then her mom really had to get her out of her head and say, Aquila, we're in the grandparents' house.
Mm.
When you were learning the theory in political science and learning about these different perspectives, did you personally be like Aquila and take a vivid imagination approach and abstract all of that theory and the political science into what was actually happening in the world?
I think that's just the person I am because Aquila is very much, this novel is based on real events. So Aquila is very much, she's not exactly me, but a lot of me is in her. So since I was young, dreaming or imagining things was just like one of my biggest things. I could spend hours a day just imagining and dreaming and thinking of stories. So yes, I would say more so for gender and development, which I studied in Nairobi, because that was really something that interested me much more than political science. I would take all that and connect it like in my head to stories that I had heard, to things I had seen, to stories I could imagine. That's just how my brain works. So yes, that's why I put it in the book to show like how vivid Aquila's imagination really is and how some people function in their brain. It's like really in a different dimension. You are in the story and you're not in the real world. You can't even hear someone speak to you at that point.
It sounds like you really dive deep into really understanding your family, like asking these very personal questions. And not a lot of people really have the ability or opportunity to do that. Like in some cultures, I know in Mexico, family is huge and they like to hug each other
Mm.
and they're very warm with that. But like in America, it's not really like as common. So it's that's do you think like that's like a common thing to really like be close with family and really ask those intimate questions with you and people of your culture, like in Germany? Is that something?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that. I don't think it is that common. Like
Hmm.
Germans are very, and again, that's a generalization. Yes, we cannot
Yes.
say that for everyone, but
Right.
The German culture in general is a lot around the individual and respecting the private space of the individual.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not very common to be super close to your parents, for example. You have a good relationship probably, but the deepness I feel I have with my family is probably also because of the different setup. You know, my mom came from a very
Mm-hmm.
conservative family. So she made
Mm-hmm.
a conscious choice to do it differently
Mm-hmm.
and to be very very open-minded, to show me a lot of the things that she felt she didn't have. So that also gave me the opportunity to be so exposed at an early age. And my dad and my stepmom took me on a lot of trips during my childhood. So again, there, you know, I learned early on, okay, having parents that are separated is not what everyone says a negative thing necessarily. It can actually be a gain because I have an awesome stepmom. I love her so much. So, you know, it can be a gain and it can be cool because you get on to go on trips and you learn so many different things. So I think early on, I just realized that what people would box into certain categories, or this is bad, or this is wrong, or this is not good for the child, I learned it was all relative depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And boxes just don't work.
Right.
You have an amazing accent. I just want to note that before we continue.
Thank you.
Because you say categories, but you say can you say categories again?
Categories? I don't know. How do you say it?
Oh, that's good. Okay, that was better. It's fun. No, don't worry about it. It's good then.
No, I know. I always get comments about my accent. I'm used to it.
Um, so you wrote in the book that Katrina and Matthias,
Mm-hmm.
um, the reason why they stayed together initially was the desire to stay together was commonplace, and that was more than enough to unite the relationship. And that ended up being fleeting later in their life, separating.
Mm-hmm.
So, my question to you is after experiencing the relationship or seeing the relationship of those are your parents, right?
Yes, they sort of represent my parents. Yeah.
So, after seeing the relationship of the parents, do you now have higher expectations of what it means to be desired or to form bond in your relationships?
No, I don't think so. There was a point in my life where I was like, okay, I would prefer to, because I have two kids. So I was like, I would prefer to not have to bring my kids up alone. But that was just a brief moment where I think I was thinking of all the pressure that sometimes seems to come with it. But at some point, I realized, just like with everything in life, it's just about the perspective that we have on something. And if we have the right mindset regarding a certain issue, then nothing can be a barrier. Even bringing your kids up alone, or because I lived with my mom and I would visit my dad and my stepmom during the holidays. So my mom basically carried most of the daily routines with me, that burden that might come with it. But I realized that it's actually only a burden if we view it as a burden. And that was sort of a big lesson I took away from right when I wrote the book, observing how I felt about my parents that are represented in the book, and realizing, no, it's just okay. You know, a relationship might part when you realize that you don't have common ground anymore. And that's absolutely fine. So it's more like deeper acceptance, even of the truth in that.
I have a question then. So you talked about how the book allowed you, how I understood it, allowed you sort of to learn about yourself.
A lot.
My question is, how many times have you rewritten the first 30 pages? The first time. So you wrote it one time through.
What was the hardest part about even like writing a book? Like I've I've had the thought of like writing a book and just starting in like how did you keep pushing forward?
That's a good question. So writing that book taught me so much. Um, And one part of it is that you have to accept that there are times when you are productive. And I call it the free flow state, when you are absolutely aligned with your thoughts, your emotions, and you are just going. You don't have to force anything. It's this, you're basically on a natural high and it just comes flooding out of you. So when those weeks would come, I would just write, and not stop. And then the next week, I would be totally blank and not know what would my people in the book say next, what would they do next, what is actually the purpose of this whole story. I would be completely drained from the previous week where I was like so much in the flow. And in the beginning, I used to get anxious and try and force myself to write. But actually, when I tried that, I only did it a few times because quickly I realized my writing is not half as good as when I'm in the free flow. So I think what it takes to write a whole book is to accept what your free flow state is and to accept that you are not always in that state. And when it's not there, just don't force it. Go do something else. And with time, the new ideas, the new energy that you need to proceed will come.
How do you have into that free flow state faster, I guess?
Yes, that's a good question. So from my experience, it's practice. And I also practice that, for example, with my coaching clients, because when you're in the free flow state, it means you're enjoying, you are having fun, you're not putting pressure on yourself. And that's when you can get one thing that would take you days done in an hour because you are
Right.
just so, I'm in it, right? So you can practice that. And for everyone, it's different. For me, I do yoga every day. I don't force myself. I just love it. I do meditation every day. I don't force myself. I just enjoy it so much. So those are my sort of, things. I dance every day because I absolutely love it. I dream every day because it gives me sort of, yay, this is how I imagine my life in 2 years. So I dream about that every day. And so I stay connected to that energy. Like that's where I want to go. And I can enjoy going there every day. Those are my best practices, but for everyone, it might be something different.
From a life coach's perspective, what would you say are the best steps or like immediate actions one can take towards having one's dream life?
Well, step number one is start dreaming. Because if you don't know what you want, you are even sending confusing messages to,
Right.
to your environment. I call it the universe. You can call it whatever you want. But how will you get the right opportunities coming your way if you are not clear on what you want in your life? So the first step
Right.
is to dream. Even if you just take an hour a day to just dream anything. And then one day you will stumble across that dream that really excites you in your heart. That's like, whoa, yeah, I really want that. And that's the dream you should follow because then you have the energy to really go on and on and on, even when it gets hard.
How do you get past that doubt stage when you're dreaming?
Well, again, that takes practice, right? Everything that I'm
Right.
saying is not something you can start today, even now, but it's something that needs a bit of practice because fear is a fundamental thing that any human experiences when they realize, like, okay, wait, actually, I could have anything I want if I were just brave enough to go for it. So
Right.
that's a scary thought. And a scary thought, like, first makes us freeze and feel like, okay, I'm in my comfort zone. That's what I know, and I should stay there. It's a basic instinct that kicks in. I want to be in survival mode now. I don't want to take any risks. So the trick here is to take small steps, right? You maybe start establishing a routine that you dream every day for an hour. That's your first step. Then you come across your exciting dream and you start thinking, which small thing can I do every day, maybe even just for 30 minutes, that sort of takes me towards that dream? Be it a skill I learn, be it something else I practice, or be it conversations I have with people that take me towards that. So, the thing is, from dreaming alone, nothing will be manifested in reality. You have to take action.
Right.
So dreaming and then taking action.
So, Sabrina, you are gifted on being a natural dreamer. You've been dreaming so much since you were young. For those individuals listening who dreaming and imagining is difficult or different for them, what are some steps for them to start, quote unquote, dreaming? How do you dream?
Let me think about that because, to me, it's just a part of what I do every day. I think the trick to everything being a success in your life is to not judge yourself, right? To not attach a value to whatever you do. So, those people listening now and thinking, yeah, Sabrina, for you it's easy because you have been dreaming all your life. It's easy for you to say dream. Just don't beat yourself up about how long you do it in the beginning or whether you feel it's crap or whether you feel it's real or not real, how you're dreaming. Just, even if you can just walk down the street and think, how would I really like to feel every day in the morning when I wake up to my life? What are the emotions I want to feel? That's a very, very basic thing you can start with because emotions are what determine how we feel about our life. So start with that. Ask yourself, okay, do I want to wake up excited? Do I want to wake up peaceful? Do I want to wake up like bubbly or rather calm? Very simple. But when you can sort of narrow down the emotions that you would like to feel the most, it's a bit easier to start thinking, okay, if I want to be calm all the time, it's probably good if I, for example, choose a job that helps me stay in a calm environment.
In a way, you're sort of like tricking your brain. You're saying so. Like, let's say like an individual works 70 hours a week. They work two jobs and they're tired. So in a way, if you tell the individual to say, "I'm not tired. I'm like happy. I'm wide awake. I have a lot of energy." Do you think that individual will possess that belief, or do you think it takes more than just that?
It takes more than that because lying about your emotions is a very dangerous thing. You have to
Mm-hmm.
really learn to feel them. And for that, you need to change some things around in your life. There's no way around that. I know there are those theories where we say, like, we can trick ourselves into feeling something, but it's actually for your well being, it's dangerous because what happens is that you trap the real emotions like the frustration, the anger, the anxiety, the worry inside yourself and
Mm-hmm.
you don't deal with them. And what then happens is that they slowly affect how you think every day and how you actually feel. Like you might get depression, you might get burnout. It's super dangerous to try and trick yourself. What I'm saying is like start dreaming by thinking, okay, how do I want to feel?
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can say like, okay, how am I feeling right now? I'm feeling shitty. Actually, I hate my job. And it means facing the reality. And then when you are real
Mm-hmm.
about that, okay, this is my shitty reality. How do I go to the beautiful reality, which is the real world, actually? So you can start taking small actions. And only when you now start being real about how you feel can those opportunities show up. But if you pretend everything is fine, how will you even come across those opportunities that allow you change? They won't show up because you block yourself.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Is there value in choosing to want to feel bad emotions? So when you were saying, I want to wake up, I want to feel peaceful, I want to feel calm, I want to feel happy,
Mhm.
bubbly today. Is there value by waking up and say, I want to feel angry, I want to feel sad? Is there value in that? And what do you think comes from that? Have you done that before?
So there are two things that pop up in my head listening to your question. Number one is there's value in acknowledging your negative emotions. Absolutely. Because if you are angry, you have to say, like, okay, I'm angry. And you have the chance to understand why you are angry. And then you have the choice, and that's true empowerment in life the choice, what do I do with this anger? Right? So you don't become just your emotion, but you become the person, like Mo, with that emotion, and you can take control of that. You are empowered to say, like, okay, I'm going to beat that person up who made me angry, or I'm actually going to have a conversation with that person who made me angry and solve this, just as an example, right? So it's very, very important to feel all the emotions. But the other side is also that many of our societies are structured in a way that pain and hard work and suffering is sort of a validation of who you really are. Right? It's like, oh, I've really worked so hard and I've gotten to where I want to go. And that's like, wow, you are so amazing. You've worked so hard all your life, right? There's a very strong value attached to feeling pain and suffering. And people often think like if things are easy, no, that can't be real, right? The downside has to show up at some point. There's a fear when things are easy in many people. But that is only because that's how our systems are structured at the moment. Actually, we can learn to make life easy almost every day. Shit will still happen, of course. Painful things will still happen. But when we choose to have things easy and light, they will happen and then we'll get out of them much quicker. So that's the difference. So, yes, feel your negative emotions, acknowledge them, deal with them, but then move on quickly. Because there's really your self-worth is not determined by the amount of pain you have felt in your life.
No, that's amazing. And I actually have a question that sort of goes back to your book.
Mm-hmm.
A common theme, at least in the first 30 pages, is the discussion of growing up and putting a steel trap around the things that you say, or growing up and limiting what you say to others or what you speak up on.
Mm-hmm.
So has this happened in your life where, as you've been growing up with your vivid imagination in your youth, you started to be embracing of reality and you have to limit what you say to others or to things?
Yes, definitely. I often felt that the things I would say in school or like outside my community, so to speak, were overwhelming people. Like it would be overwhelming for for me to say like, hey, but there's no difference in whether someone comes from Africa or from Europe. We are all the same. It would overwhelm some people because I grew up in the village in Germany. So many people would think like, okay, the way we do stuff here is the right way. And, we would have colorful people visit our house. And then some kids would say like, hey, those are just weird people who show up in your house, what's going on. So I felt at an early age that, okay, on the one hand, I feel very positive about what I know and I feel good being who I am. But at the same time, I feel some people are uncomfortable. So I did monitor sometimes how I would say certain things or whether I would truly speak my mind, simply because I felt I didn't want to overwhelm. Definitely. And, two of the other characters, Insu and Jisoo in the book, who really feel that their family is sort of boxing them in their choices, that I've seen with a lot of people in my surroundings. So, it might come from outside, but you might also feel that it's something that comes from the closest people around you, that limitation of really expressing who you are and what you want. And I think for children and young adults, it has a huge impact on how they feel they can survive in this world, what they are able to do, how they can show up out there. And that's why I felt it had to be in the book. It's such an important topic for people to really think about.
The interesting thing about this, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, is there are many different quote unquote conspiracy theories, beliefs, religion, ideas, political views, race, gender, so many different things that in today's world humans do or do not want to speak about. They really don't want to speak about them publicly. However, they are core parts of our identity.
Mm-hmm.
That mean our sense of self and a sense of identity of interacting with the environment is based upon those beliefs. So if you're unable to speak about them or if you're unable to discuss them, then it becomes you're not able to fully interact with your environment.
What Bo is trying to say is that he's wondering if you think that lizards rule the world. Do you believe in that?
That's
I
funny.
think they do.
Yeah.
No, it's the raccoon, actually.
Oh.
So let me know. This is a safe place, this podcast. And one of the main intentions of this podcast is to be able to have you fully express yourself. You are the spotlight, okay? And because we have an open platform and we are open to freedom of speech and freedom of expression, is there anything, Sabrina, that you would like to sort of speak about or feel like we should prioritize in the world speaking about in today's world? Is there something that is behind the steel trap that you feel should be in front?
No, I mean that those were experiences I had as a child, right? And my whole journey and also all that I packed into this book, which is why it's called An Ordinary Odyssey, is just to show that we all are on a journey to explore ourselves and to free ourselves from certain limitations that we feel are there, that hold us back for whatever reason, right? So you mentioned about race, gender, and all those. Those are all labels that we attach to people or to the world to make it easier to communicate with each other and to understand each other. But those labels only work if they don't have a value attached to them. As soon as we attach a value, like that's race is, the most common example I think I can use. A
Right.
value is attached to, okay, the lighter your skin, the higher your value, the darker your skin, the lower your value somehow in that sense. That, of course, has a huge impact on how this world is structured. So labels only make sense as long as we use them without any value. If I just use them in a descriptive way. And that's, I think, where most people go wrong, right? Thinking that, okay, my self-worth is attached to the labels that are attached to me. They are not. You're just a human being, right? And we are all human beings. So to learn, and that's also, again, something that I take a lot in my coaching, detaching your self-worth from anything in the outside world, that's true empowerment again. Because when someone can come up to you and say like, hey, you're just a woman, you can't do this, just as an example, because that's another label that might be applied to me, for example. So you're just a woman, you can't do this. If my self-worth is attached to I'm a woman, definitely that will affect me, right? And it will influence how I think, oh yeah, although I'll try not to think that, I will somehow, I'm a woman, can I really know the society is holding me back and all that talk will go off in my head and limit me actually. But when I can say like, yes, the label woman applies to me, but it doesn't like say anything about my value as a person, then that statement will not affect me. I might choose to have a conversation with that person and challenge them on their views, but otherwise I would just go about my life. And I will not let that hold me back. And that is a certain energy that shifts things around you. When you have that energy, you realize that although people might try to apply those valued labels to you, at some point you might be able to break through those. Yeah. It's it's a tricky thing when pain
Right.
is attached to something. Like I have this discussion with my teenage daughter a lot because she has the German cultural background and the Kenyan, right? And when we moved to Germany, she really struggled with, because in Kenya there's not the same concept of racism that you have in the US, for example, or in Europe. So she really had to come to terms with certain people reacting to her in a negative way simply because of her looks. And we had this discussion around the labels black and white. And she was like, I don't even know why, why we have to, even as a colored person, why do I have to use that label? Like, I don't feel it makes any sense to use it. I'm just a person and I want to be
Right.
seen as just a person. And I find it very interesting to have conversations with teenagers these days because they view labels in a much more fluid way than we used to. Um, Even the LGBTQ community, sexuality is fluid. Yes, and all labels in reality are fluid. So I don't think that the thing is that the label is bad or labeling is bad, but if we think of it as a box again, that's when it becomes a negative thing. If we understand it's fluid and it changes all the time, that becomes a different story.
I think fluidity is true across all spectrums, including like political. There's not like one or zero. It's not like computers. Like like everyone has a view, and it's on a spectrum.
Absolutely.
And right.
Is there any label out there that is stationary forever? Is there any label that you can put confidence in that will stay the same now and the next 1,000 years?
No, but what I usually say is like, as long as you as an individual come from a place of love, compassion, and trust, everything will be fine. Right? So, love and compassion might still mean different things to you because every person is differently, but like thinks differently about love and compassion and stuff. But if you come from that positive space, then with anyone you interact, only, some good stuff can come from it. And even if that means like you briefly meet someone and say, then, okay, this doesn't work, let's part ways very quickly. Let's not get into deeper conversations or whatever. So, and the trust for me, it means that you realize that the world is not fundamentally bad or against you. And I think that's needed for us to let go of all the negative values that we attach to labels. Because let's think about it. The only reason why we need labels with a value is because we feel we have to sort of validate our own self-worth. Otherwise, we wouldn't have to say, "Oh, I'm better because I'm straight," or "I'm better because I'm white," or whatever. If we
Hmm.
would just be able to love, trust ourselves, and be compassionate even to ourselves, we can be that to everyone. So that's sort of I don't know, you can't really call them labels, but if you would live by that, you wouldn't need labels, if that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. No, I love it. I appreciate that. And I think that having a label of labels or a fulcrum point inside the sea of labels would allow for guidance in the world. And it's difficult to communicate the label of labels. So being able to operate from the label of love and compassion is enough for an individual to truly feel the highest self worth in themselves.
Yes.
And I think that your words and your book and your story is an exemplar of an individual trying to get her worldview out from the place of love.
Absolutely. My highest value is freedom, actually. For everyone, that might be something else. But for me, it's freedom.
Hmm.
So, if we all give each other space and freedom, would be a wonderful world.
What does freedom mean to you?
It means the space to really be my authentic creative self. And, when we are, that's just basically what I just said. In other words, when we can be ourselves, our real selves, without any values judgment, guilt, shame attached to it, that's when we can make a difference in the world, because suddenly we have that energy, that excitement, that fun, that lightness that actually gives us the power and the empowerment to be nice to other people, to make a change, to say, okay, I'm not okay with those labels, I want to do something about it. But when we are very unfree in who we really are, we are basically losing all our energy trying to keep up appearances, trying to think, oh, what should I be saying? I can't say the wrong thing. What will people think? Like, whoa, so much energy is wasted every day.
Right. We're put in this box and we're getting told, no, don't do this, don't do that. And we start to form this idea of who we are and what to do based off what we're told, these values. And then we're starting to get all these labels. So really breaking away from that to be yourself. And that's,
Yeah.
hard in today's society because, you're on social media and you see all this information and, you see your friends, they're out, it looks like they're traveling abroad and they're having the time of their life, and then you start comparing yourself. So it's difficult.
It is difficult. Yes,
right.
Absolutely. And I totally get it. I mean, I wasn't on social media until early this year when I started my business. So I went on social media for my business and very consciously chose, okay, what content do I want to put out there? How will I add to the noise that's already there and to all the stress? And, so I really took some time to figure that out, because most of the content I came across to me felt like it was sort of polished and not the real version of whatever that person was, story that person was telling.
Absolutely.
So, making yourself free from that is also such an amazing feeling. But again, it's like everything we talked about today, it takes practice. It takes practice to disconnect. It takes practice to face your real emotions and how you truly feel about your dreams, yourself. Once you do that, you have the power to actually say okay, their life might look amazing, but my life is also amazing because I'm doing what I want. I'm being myself.
The point of being yourself and being vulnerable is also a fear among a lot of people because in today's culture, there's being politically correct and that cancel culture. Like one wrong mishap, and then a lot of people will start attacking you. I think a lot of people are not as authentic because there's that fear.
Yes, but actually, the ironic thing is when we try to be something else, in the long run, that's when the attacks will happen. Because when you overthink so much, oh, what will I say? How will I react to that? What should I put out there? That's when you don't put a real message out there, right? You're just making noise. But when you put something out there that is really you, and that is your truth, even when some negativity comes back, it will not affect you as much as when it's a lie, when it's not really you, because you will absolutely know that's me. And that's very liberating. Some of the posts, right in the beginning of my journey on social media early in the year, I deliberately put a message out there where I thought that's not easy for me to write. That I'm revealing something, I'm being very vulnerable here. And it freaked me out because I had the same fears. But what I realized was that when I did that, actually what came back was so many encouraging messages. And because it was my truth, after I posted the real message I wanted to put out there that was being vulnerable, I felt so much relief. It was like a weight was lifted off my shoulders because I was just being me. And I gained a lot of energy from that. So it's something we can practice. And with time, the right people will find us. But your people cannot find you when you are telling lies on social media, because you're not showing who you really are. How will your people be able to find you? They won't. So the sooner you are real, even on social media or wherever, the sooner your people can figure out, oh, this is someone who has the same beliefs. This is someone who has the same interests. Let's meet up. And that's when real relationships are formed.
Absolutely.
Sabrina, you talk a lot about different dishes in the first 30 expert. Well, three marmalade, bread and butter breakfast, and then I forgot the last one. It was, I think it was some tea. But I'm curious, what are some dishes that you're interested in with your family? What's your favorite Kenyan dish?
Oh, I have a lot of food. So first of all, I love food. So,
Who doesn't?
right? No,
You would have to be miserable if you didn't love food. Let's be honest. Like,
you're right. So, Kenyan dishes. I love all the Kenyan coastal dishes because they're very spicy. Lots of them have coconut, and I like that a lot. But there's also a very basic Kenyan dish that I absolutely love. It's ugali or sima with sukuma wiki and terere. Like those are some greens you can even find on the side of the road. They're basically like weeds, but you can cook them. And I absolutely love that dish. It's something that you eat in Kenya almost every day.
it's pronounced sukuma wiki. Is that how you say it?
Sukuma wiki, actually, it's
Okay.
it's a Swahili word for skuma heißt push. It's called
Okay.
push. It means push. Sorry, I'm mixing all the languages now. And
Right.
wiki is the week. So it basically
Mm.
means I'm pushing the week. Means this is a dish that I can easily afford, and that will take me through the week, even if times are hard.
From my understanding, it's a kale dish. And can you explain to like our listeners a little bit more about like how you would make it and like what it tastes like as well?
Oh God, what it tastes like. So ugali.
Don't say heaven, please. I know you're gonna say that.
So ugali is something that is known in different African countries by different names. So in Nigeria, it's
Mm-hmm.
fufu, for example. It's cooked slightly
Mm-hmm.
differently, but it's all from maize meal, so maize flour, and
Mm-hmm.
it's mixed in hot water. You have like a wooden spoon, a big wooden spoon, and you mix it, mix it, mix it until it gets hard. Many Kenyans joke that it's an African cake because when you have shaped it, once it's fully cooked, it's like this white,
Sounds
softish
like a good workout.
thing. Yeah, actually, it is. If you cook it for many people, you get like good muscles. Anyway, so it tastes quite bland actually when it's
Mm-hmm.
cooked, but then you eat it with the with the skuma wiki or with a beef stew, and you eat it with your hands. So you take off a piece and then you form it into like a small sort of spoon in your hand, and then you take the food with that, and it's super
Mm-hmm.
sweet.
Wow.
Can you
So
imagine it?
that's what that
That's
I can.
that just sounds so good. Like I love trying unique dishes, and I'm all for that.
Yeah.
Uh, so this is what you cook for your family.
Well, yeah, I also cook ugali. Actually, I'm very good at cooking ugali.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one last question to you, and then Max, if you have one last question, then we can wrap it up. But we love speaking to you. My last question to you, Sabrina, is with your family.
Hmm.
Did this book and your experiences interacting with your mother, your father, and the leaders and individuals in your youth, what parenting styles and techniques changed or stayed the same when you were raising your kids? What do you want to provide for your children that you did not have growing up?
I think the one thing, so a lot is just the same because my parents raised me to be free, open, tolerant, full of love, and to go out there into the world and just be curious about the world and be curious about stories. So that's just the same. The thing that I do differently, and that's just because I was trained as a coach and I got opened up to that whole world of how you can change your mind and your emotions in a positive way to be fearless and even to enjoy life and to let go of the pains of the past. So that's the one thing I think that the one skill that I have that my parents probably didn't have, that exposure to coaching and everything that comes with it. So I use that a lot with my kids to show them like you can create a life that is light and easy and beautiful and just go out there and live your dreams. Yeah, that's the difference. And I think if we can spread that more and more, it can be like a wildfire, spreading across the globe, and then so much good can happen for so many people. Just thinking about it, I get really excited. So yeah, that's why I raise my kids in that way.
I appreciate the answer, by the way.
Another question, last question. I think Max.
Yeah,
Maybe a light, fun one.
yeah. What would you say your favorite movie is?
What? I didn't hear you. Like the sound was.
Your favorite movie?
Oh, my
What would you say it is?
movies. Okay.
Or TV show?
An absolute lover of South Korean series.
So
Absolutely love them. So there are so many. So many.
What was that TV show that just came out?
Oh, I think you want to say Squid Game, but no, that's not my
Yes,
favorite.
yes. No.
There's so many amazing. So the reason why I love a lot of Korean dramas and series, or even crime stories, is because they take the time to explore the deeper emotions of the individuals, right? And I'm all for that. So if you're interested to explore, you can, if you like a bit more action crime, you can watch The Bad Guys season 2, specifically season 2. If you are interested in like really good drama, then watch My Mister, because it explores also the topic we just talked about today, like trauma or pain, pain, and then how do you let that go and how do you get to a better life. So there's so many great Korean series.
Have you seen Parasite?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a really good Korean movie that I would recommend.
Yeah, I've read a lot about it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. It discusses just classism and just the economy. It's very interesting. I would recommend it.
Yeah. So there's a lot out there, but
Right.
yeah, I watch that a lot. And I really like series because they give you time to tell the story. Yeah.
Okay.
Sabrina, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. We are the Conversation Pit, and we had an amazing guest today. And please check out her website in the link below.
Website is sabrinalindercoach.com.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Sabrina.
for having me.
If you made it this far, you're a real one. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Give us a like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on our future episodes. Thanks again. Signing off.